Welcome to Politely Pushy. I'm your host, as always, Eric Chemi. Eric Chemi. Politely Pushy. Politely Pushy. I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. Welcome to Politely Pushy. I'm your host, Eric Chemi. Today we are talking about AI. Of course, right? AI is the only thing that people seem to be talking about these days. And today I'm with Kyle and Courtney, Bospar employees who are in charge of the Bospar AI initiatives, AI University, AI programming, everything AI that's happening here at Bospar. So, Courtney, I'll start with you. Every headline I read right now is that AI is going to eliminate everybody's jobs, including all the people that work in places like this. Well, what is your take on that?
I definitely don't think it's eliminating our jobs, but I am going to sound like a broken record because all the other CEOs are saying the same thing. It's going to make us more productive. It's going to make us more efficient. There's ways to create our outputs and think creatively and do our deliverables in a way that we've never been able to do before. And it doesn't eliminate our jobs. We still very much need a human touch within communication. We speak about emotion, and end product and what that looks like and the synergy that exists within it. You can't remove us, but we can be more productive.
You can't remove us yet, right? Right, Kyle, you're on the cutting edge. What do you see? Because I feel like a lot of AI now, it can do emotion, it can do reasoning, it can do so many things that we would have thought we needed a human to do.
No, I think that's true. And Courtney and I were having this discussion earlier that yes, with each new model and each new progression, there's always things that are happening. We're like, wow, that's different, that's new, that's exciting. But at the end of the day, especially in places like a PR agency, I think people are paying for expertise, and a lot of people can experiment with different models and different prompts and things and get really good outputs. But at the end of the day, the application and figuring out how to really package it up in a way that not only makes sense to the end user, but media, there's a skill that isn't quite at the AI level. And I won't say that we'll never get there, but we're not there yet.
So what are some of the initiatives that you two are working on internally? Is it about educating employees? Is it about showing them the right tools? Is it some AI ethics? What exactly is the role of leading these Bospar AI initiatives? And feel free to jump in. You two can disagree with each other and argue with each other. Don't wait for me to ask. You guys can just jump right in and chat with each other.
I would say right now we're creating what I like to refer to as the AI playground. I think a lot of people are very fearful about AI to a point where they're scared to even use it, dabble in it. We hear about, data concerns and we as a PR firm have NDAs, and, there's a lot from the journalist side about plagiarism and, not giving commentary that's human made. So there's a lot of concerns and scary things attached to AI, and it's created a world where people are not adopting it as fast as you would expect, considering it does have incredible power in speeding things up. And we're in a world where, we're incredibly busy and would love to be able to power through some of our workload smarter, but faster. So AI University is a lot about creating guardrails and doing some hand-holding, but more so empowering employees to find ways for them to create a better workday for themselves with the AI tool that they prefer.
Oh, it's interesting. And I'll let Kyle jump in too. So you're telling me actually people aren't using it enough. I would have thought you might've said the opposite, which is people are using it too much. You're actually saying, no, they need to use it more.
Yeah, we actually deployed a survey internally throughout the agency just to confirm, what exactly is going on with AI. Is it a world where people are playing with a lot of different tools? Are they using one and sticking to it? Are they not using it at all? And we do find a couple of trends did show up, one of which was people do find the one tool that they like and they kind of stick with it. They don't give themselves to play with other options out there, or use new LLM systems to see what the results look like. But yes, particularly from younger employees, I think there is still a level of questions as to how to use it responsibly, to a point where they're slower to use it.
And I want to just add to that, I think another component to this too is the client side of things. As Courtney was saying, not only are we trying to create guardrails for what works for us internally, but also letting clients know, we don't want to say we're not using it and then get caught and say oh yes you did because this is why. We want to be very transparent and intentional in saying, yes, we do use it in these ways for this reason. This is how your information is safe. And also empower our clients to use it in ways that are smart and practical for the media, because the media isn't quite caught up with the AI jargon or how to implement, AI written content. We're still figuring all of that out, but to be able to utilize it in a way that they're getting the most PR impact for their money and their contract length, they want to see, how can I utilize the tool as well to enhance that experience? So it really is like a twofold situation that we're trying to discover and unfold together.
So I see the issue with clients isn't, we're concerned that you're using AI because we want you to be more creative. It's, we're concerned you're using AI because we don't want our information now being put into a public system. Is that really what the big issue is?
I think so. I think that's more so what I hear from clients than other than it's not necessarily a creative challenge, more so than a security and safety concern.
So what are the, let's say a new employee starts tomorrow. What are you telling them? Hey, here's the 3 things that you definitely should be using AI for. And what are the 3 things that we don't want you to use it for?
We don't want you to use AI in the sense of inputting any documentation from a client that is not for external consumption. Especially within our industry, there's a lot of internalized decks. There's a lot of company information that's not yet public. Anything of that nature is an absolute red flag. We do not want that within an AI model. Funding, valuations, things of that nature, we just can't risk it. So that's a pretty blanketed no. But things that they should be using it for, I like to guide people to using AI as an assistant to allow you to create more unique deliverables or think outside of the box. I find ChatGPT, Claude, they are really practical, not just in speeding things up. While that's a great thing, it almost creates a little buddy, especially within a remote world, someone who can almost think a little bit different from you, so that you can be a little bit more on your toes about how you're creating things, what the end product looks like, so it's not so cookie cutter. We have to be really innovative and different when we approach media, and I do think ChatGPT is a really great way to get you thinking outside of your standard thought processes.
Yeah, no, I will say one of my favorite additional prompts, once I've already got a piece of work that I like, or a pitch that I prefer, or an approach with a journalist that I think will work, I always like to flip it around and then say, okay, well, now I want you to think like this journalist at this outlet who covers this topic, and poke holes in this entire situation. Make it all, question everything. And more often than not, I'll get really strong results of, hey, here's where the pain points are. Here's what you're not answering, or here's where it's being over-labored. And it just helps me streamline from a perspective that I'm aware of, but am not in day to day.
I like that. I like that approach. Hey, be this reporter, be this journalist, and basically give me the rejection now before I actually send the email pitch later and officially get the rejection. You might as well, let's practice it now so I can avoid those pitfalls and try to either answer them in advance, or maybe just don't even pitch that person in the first place. I like that way of taking on these roles. How much are we spending on AI internally? Is everyone just doing like the $20 a month, little ChatGPT plus, or are we getting some corporate, like what is the situation right now?
That's such an interesting question, Eric. So currently there's no internal system in place where the company is funding everyone to have an AI assistant or buddy, or however we want to frame that. However, we are currently actively looking for and researching AI specific tools, particularly for teams that are geared for the PR space. So hard to find, but they are starting to trickle out, and there are many benefits to those. And the goal, I think, for the agency, I don't want to speak for people above me, but the goal is to hopefully find something that works for everyone, but allows us to be collaborative with our AI use as a team, so that we're not using our individual ChatGPTs and Claudes in a way that is siloed from everything else that the company is doing.
Oh, so I see. So like if the 3 of us were each doing something, it should at least know about it, like in some corporate system where it's aggregating all of our individual work, and that smartness improves over time. Is that the idea?
Yes. One thing we get asked about quite frequently is the concept of a prompt library. ChatGPT or any other system, it only gives you as good as what you can question it. And so putting together just a really short sentence that's missing a lot of details is not going to get you the output you're looking for, because there is some level of repetition to what we're doing on the day-to-day. It would behoove us to eventually have a prompt library, if you will, where you could just kind of swap in and out some details, but ultimately it gives you a really good, in-depth, thoughtful response when it comes to survey questions or pitch writing or award research, things of that nature, things that are really duplicative for us.
That's a good point. But then it's funny, a lot of times you can use the AI to give you the prompts, right? Now it's like, hey, I don't have prompts, make me a prompt library, and then boom, it does that for you. So
yeah, I love kind of flipping AI. And so there have been times where I put it into a position where it's asking me questions rather than me asking it questions.
Oh, really? How do you do that? What are you saying to set that up?
So I will, similar to the role-playing concept, if I have a piece of, let's say a press release or a pitch, I can put that into my ChatGPT and say, if I were doing a live interview with such and such reporter, what are they going to be asking me? And then it'll, spit out a couple of questions. I would give it a response as if I'm the key spokesperson. And I really just get a better sense of what's the forward-thinking conversation at play here. That way we can get ahead of those conversations and create talking points, create a briefing document that's more specific and catered to the, conversation that we're going to have, things of that nature. But it's a slight twist on AI that people don't necessarily think of.
I like that. Yeah, make them the one asking the questions as opposed to us. You mentioned different tools. You mentioned how some people, they'll get stuck on one tool and they won't try the others. What tools are the two of you experimenting with right now? Do you feel like you've tried all of them? I mean, I guess no one has tried all. There's so many different niche ones, but what are the tools that you feel like you've spent the most time with? What are the ones that you feel like you still need to get to? And then I'm curious, how would you rank them, right? Like, hey, this was really good at something, but this was really bad. I'm curious your adventures in this space. Kyle, I haven't heard from him in a while.
Okay, I will say I have two. I like ChatGPT because it's kind of where I started. It's where a lot of people started, but also I'm a huge Perplexity fan.
Oh, really?
So what I find myself doing, I think Perplexity is much better at data and data points and stronger research information. So typically I will, if I'm researching, start with Perplexity, take those data points or those links or whatever it feeds me that I find to be relevant, and actually plug that back into ChatGPT and say, here's the data that I have or that I want to use. Please, let's make this more creative, depending on the task, whatever it is, the prompt library. But I use Perplexity for data mining and then ChatGPT for more of the creative flow, if you will.
That's actually my exact answer, really.
Oh,
and
really?
I think a lot of people, when we did kind of first iterations of AI University throughout the agency, many did uncover that Perplexity was significantly better with the research function. People also liked the voice function within Perplexity. But ChatGPT, it stole everyone's heart. It was the first one. It was the app that people downloaded. It was the interface people just got really used to. So I find it's just kind of what people gravitate towards. You find yourself pulling up ChatGPT more than anything else. But I do think ChatGPT is very creative, really good with more of the one-pagers and the strategy documents. And also, the more you use it, the more it understands you, the more it understands what you're looking for. And so, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because I'm using ChatGPT more than anything else, it's over time becoming the best version for me.
Right. What about anyone using Grok?
Mm-mm.
Haven't touched it?
Won't touch it, but that's a different conversation.
You won't touch it. I find, for some certain research projects, I find its thinking can be better than ChatGPT. There were some scenarios, because I would do both. What about Gemini from Google?
I've dabbled in Gemini,
Yeah.
but I've never loved it. It was a short-lived
Short fling with
I will
Gemini.
agree with that, but I will say if you live in Google Drive like we do, they're starting to really implement Gemini in Google Drive. So depending on how that relationship builds itself out to with my day-to-day activities and behavior, I could see myself using it more. If through Google Drive and Sheets and whatever else, it becomes more intuitive with the data that we already are using, then who knows? But currently, it's not my favorite.
It's not as great, I think, as the other ones, but I find it, if you go into Notebook LM,
Yeah.
you can create a podcast, which I find fascinating.
That's incredible.
That's crazy. And you can start to ask questions of those podcast hosts. They'll hear your question, stop what they're talking about, and then start interacting with you. So, and I'm sure, it's not exactly Gemini, but it'll all get related at some point, on some back end. It's similar, like you said, Google Drive, Microsoft Copilot. I find that starts to pop up everywhere. If I'm in an Edge browser, I'm doing Office, that starts to pop up. That can be helpful sometimes. I don't know if you two have used much of that. No. Okay. And then Claude. I feel like a lot of people love Claude.
A lot of people love Claude. That's the tech darling for sure. I personally don't know anyone at the agency who really stuck with Claude in any significant way. But I think
Curtis is a huge Claude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing I would like to point out, which I think is interesting, and Kyle can probably elaborate more, but one of the products we were test running, to me, is kind of more so the future of AI, which is one system that gives you access to all of these LLMs. So you feed in your one question, and then you can toggle between what the Claude response is, what the Perplexity response is, what the ChatGPT response is, so that you have more of an easy navigation to all the variables that exist, which I think we'll see a lot more often as new products come out.
There's a company I just heard about yesterday. It's called Profound, and their idea is getting your brand featured in the AI responses. So, before it was like Google SEO. So now it's like, when someone asks a question in ChatGPT or Perplexity, let's make sure your brand is the one that gets mentioned. And I think, that's going to be a fascinating world of, well, how do they even do that? How do you infiltrate the back end to pop up, Courtney's Bakery or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was thinking about it within our own industry, because we always talk about data and we always really go after the quirky data. And I was curious one day, and I put in the prompt, I wanted to see if one of our clients would pull as the response, because we had some of the questions that no one else had. And so I put in a specific question, and it did in fact pull our previous client and the data that we had created on their behalf. So for us specifically, not on the marketing side, but the PR side, it does infiltrate how we should be thinking about, the messaging, the talking points, the data that we're creating. Because exactly to your point, if you do have someone with a very specific question in an AI platform and it pulls your client's data, that's gold in the future.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was on my first client call today, actually, and it was the first time I heard that a new survey was released, and it pulled the client survey data, and it wasn't like they didn't ask for it to pull that specific data, but it organically came up. And they were like, that felt game-changing, because it felt like this is where people are going to not search, but get organic information in a conversational way, which is very different than Google SEO has ever been in the past.
Break that down again. So tell me, so what was the difference, just for people who are listening, like they want to clearly get, like, so what was new? What changed?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not exactly sure what the client data was, but essentially the client was asking questions not related to what they found in their own data, but just an industry type question. And it started feeding their latest report, which I think was less than 24 hours old, back to them as conversational information with cited sources, and it happened to be their own data. So when you're going in and you're having these conversations about and this is oversimplified, but how do I bake a brownie? And it pulls something that's from, a top chef, for example, that's great because that's what people are going to look for, because they're not going to go in and Google that. They're going to have a conversation with ChatGPT first and say, what do I need to do to make this happen? And whether you know it or not, you're getting data from somewhere. Like, you're getting that information from somewhere. So I really think that's going to be the gold mine moving forward.
I see. Yeah, no, I agree. I've been using it a lot more now for questions I have, like, hey, my Sonos speakers at home, they're not showing up on my app. What do I do? I'm not Googling it, I'm asking AI, and it'll just say, okay, like, go and do these things. Like, boom, here's your answer. This is how you're going to fix it, right? Or just there were just something like, okay, there's some tech question. I forget what it was. Like, hey, how do I fix this other issue in my house? And it's just like, okay, boom, just go do these things. So I'm not Googling anything, right? So you do wonder how will people make money in that situation? Hey, there's no ad to click on. What's that going to look like? I'm curious though, outside of, let's say, these large language models, a lot of the tech stuff, is anyone playing with video content creation in AI, audio content creation, right? Like, editing tools, a lot of this stuff that a lot of our job is to make sure things become good video, good audio. And at some level, a podcast like this, AI could do that podcast, right? AI could do a news segment. Has anyone messed with any of those kinds of things?
I would say it doesn't necessarily come internally, but we field these questions a lot with clients, since they're the ones usually delivering, B-roll, social media content, things of that nature. There's questions about, is this allowed? Would a reporter or a news anchor think less of a potential segment with us if we're giving AI generated content? Questions like that are bubbling up quite often. Very specifically, we used to work with a client and a video vendor on standard video content creation, and quotes would be anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. And of course, one very smart CEO came around within about 24 hours and said, we got off that brainstorm and I saw the price quote and I decided to play with AI, and this was the end result. And I think it looks pretty good. And honestly, we agreed. So there is definitely a world where that is happening. You will have reporters who do, think less of AI generated photos, video content. They might go after another story because it is, more traditional assets. But with the cost savings that we're seeing, clients are moving towards that level of content creation more and more.
Are clients saying, hey, why do I even need a PR agency? I can just ask ChatGPT for a PR strategy and reporters to pitch and write the pitch for me, right? Like, I'm sure people think that.
People definitely think that, but surprisingly, it hasn't come up in any of our conversations. I think people still realize, one, AI just can't be trusted yet with the outputs. I've seen a lot of errors and things going wrong within searches. We've also seen a lot of horror stories hit media and LinkedIn about, pitches gone wrong. They strike the wrong tone. They're really aggressive. A whole agency gets blacklisted because of a pitch that went south. So I think even clients, they still see that right now AI is not ready. And of course, if you ask me, obviously I have skin in the game, but reporters are human and they're always going to want to deal with humans on the other side as well. Can we optimize with AI to make it a lot more efficient? Definitely.
I want to word this very carefully.
All right, let's give you time. Let's make sure you got your careful words here.
I want to word this very carefully, but I will say, I think it's no secret to all of us that some people just don't fully understand PR. Even if they are engaged in a PR contract, they're not really sure what we do or how we do it or why it's important. And there are other clients on the flip side that fully understand the power of PR and what we do. And I think something that cannot be underscored, and this is an I don't remember where, I think maybe it was the New York Times, but it was a podcast I was listening to where it said, because information is so readily available now, the importance of relationships and true connection based on recommendation or word of mouth is actually going to become full circle and become more powerful, because everyone, broadly speaking, has the same power at their fingertips if you know how to use it. But the relationships, the one-on-one connections, the power of the years of experience that we have collectively, and how to get certain things placed or pitched or what have you, that's never going to be an output that AI can comprehend or deliver to you, because that personalized touch will never be there. So I think it's understanding how PR works, but also understanding there are just certain things that AI will not be able to deliver that people inside an agency will.
I like that. Yeah, it's almost like there's so much information that having information doesn't matter anymore. It's about the human touch, or like, like the AI can't replicate your connections, your network, your relationships, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not yet. It's been fascinating to watch. It's interesting to watch how more companies are taking on initiatives like what you two are doing. There was a friend of mine works at another agency, and they got the sense from management there basically that is, we're not hiring any entry-level people anymore. Like AI is the entry-level person. So we're not going to hire someone so that they can learn when all they're going to do is the stuff that AI can do. So it's this weird thing now. How are you going to get experience? You can't get started. They only want veteran people now, because veteran people have relationships, have a network, have connections, have all that. But just to come in and say, I'll help you with information, that's not a job, at least right now.
Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of conversations right now about the death of middle management.
Yeah.
And I asked the same question. I said, okay, if you look at the corporate ladder and you remove middle management, how do we get people to be above middle management? And no one has an answer. I've asked many very intelligent, thoughtful people, and no one's been able to give me something smart as a response.
Well, when you find out, come back. We'll do the podcast again. Like, Courtney found out the information. She figured out how we're going to get up the career ladder here by jumping from entry level to CEO. I don't do middle management. I just jumped ahead. Yeah.
Apparently, although the data is currently showing Gen Z doesn't want leadership or C-suite at all. So that's another conversation.
Yeah. I was going to say, as a middle manager, like, I would love to have that conversation. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. This is great. Kyle, Courtney, awesome time. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I need to do more with Perplexity. That's the one I haven't done enough with. So it's interesting to hear what you guys are saying about it. So like, okay, that's my to-do list here when we're done.
Definitely cross-reference and let us know what you define as your favorite after you experiment.
For sure. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kyle and Courtney.
Thank
you.
Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.